Official Chinese regulators they've revealed that there's only one electric car company in China actually making a profit. They're saying, everyone's playing the long game, basically putting in enormous sums of money. We're talking about hundreds of millions. In fact, industry-wide, many, many billions of dollars are going into putting themselves in a position where they can crush legacy automakers with amazing technology, but they're willing to take a loss. But what's surprising here, guys, is that what I've said has been confirmed. Only one EV manufacturer in China is actually making money selling EVs. And you can imagine there are also no legacy automakers making a profit selling EVs either. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. It's great to see you. If you'd like to, you can join the channel YouTube member section. We do put videos up there that are not available on the regular section of the channel, and it does help support the channel as well. So what is this brand? Well, it's who I've been talking about, BYD. BYD and Tesla, as far as we know, are still the only two car manufacturers worldwide making a profit selling EVs. Now, other manufacturers have made ridiculous claims like Stellantis. Stellantis has made some insane claims about their EV sales and prices and things, but nothing that's ever been actually proven or actually certified, or nothing that shareholders have said, oh, okay, I see that you've got the actual cost for each EV, that's how much profit you made. There's no confirmation that anyone other than Tesla and BYD make a profit selling EVs. Now, Porsche could, selling the Taycan. It does sell the Taycan at a pretty premium price, but that said, Porsche Taycan sales have fallen by 51% this year. So even if it does, it's sort of an insignificant product in terms of the mass market. Doesn't sell cars at mass market. It will in the future though. Mass market EVs for Porsche are coming. Not really affordable, but still they're coming. Getting back to this story. This is quite an interesting story here, guys, because the Song Ziping, who is the president of the China Association of Listed Companies, he said in a speech only a couple of days ago that the only car producers making money from new energy vehicles are BYD and Li Auto. But Li Auto clearly doesn't make a profit off its one EV, which has been a bit of a sales flop. Unfortunately, it's a brilliant car, but it hasn't sold very well. It's an MPV. The rest of Li Auto's, really the majority of Li Auto's sales, more than 90% of them, come from their plug-in hybrids. So essentially, China is saying Li Auto makes a profit, maybe not on all of them, but in general, it does make a profit selling plug-in hybrids. That's great. But obviously, this channel here, we talk about electric cars. And if you make a profit selling a plug-in hybrid, it's not the same as making a profit selling an EV. And the key reason, guys, is they're very different vehicles. The battery pack size is much bigger. I mean, the biggest batteries we're seeing in plug-in hybrids are around about 30 kilowatt hours, right? The average battery pack size in an equivalent vehicle would be about 80 to 90 kilowatt hours. We're talking the Li Auto sized SUVs. It would have to be probably not even 100 kilowatt hour size battery. So very different vehicle, very different architecture. But essentially, we do know BYD does make a small profit selling EVs. But we don't know if that's this year. That may or may not be the case this year. We don't have confirmation yet on whether BYD is in fact still making a profit over the last quarter. They might have, they might not have, but they are selling their vehicles at a very, very low price in order to gain market share. BYD's strategy is brilliant. They are really killing it in China. You've got to say, even if they're making no profit, even if they're just making breaking even, it's working. And I think that it's genius. So I'm not criticizing BYD. I think they're in a phenomenal position here, a very powerful position. But BYD are clearly very efficient, very vertically integrated. And that's one of the key reasons why they make their own batteries, for one. There's no middlemen for the most of the things they put into their EVs. Yes, they don't make everything themselves, but the majority of things in their EVs, the most important parts, the batteries, the structural battery packs, everything else, that is made by BYD. The motors, of course, are made by BYD as well. And therefore, they can make a profit. But the key thing here, guys, to remember is no one else is making any money selling EVs. And if that's the case, why? Well, this perfectly explains why General Motors, Volkswagen, Porsche, basically every legacy automaker is saying, oh, EV demand's going down. Demand for EVs, it's not what we thought it would be. Isn't that convenient? They don't make any profit selling EVs, and demand for those products is, oh, it's not what we thought it would be. Well, that is clearly the reason, right? They don't want to sell too many because they make a loss. They're going to make hay while the sun shines and then hope that, well, Chinese car makers and the incumbents don't disrupt them, don't annihilate them off the face of the planet, which they could. I mean, even though there are obviously these penalties for selling EVs now in Europe and particularly in the United States, it's possible that Ford and General Motors just end up being America-only companies. That could happen. Realistically, the Ford Ranger, the Toyota Hilux, why would anyone buy one of those if potentially there's better products you can buy from, say, BYD? If the BYD Shark is as good as it looks, honestly, you'd have to be insane to buy a simply diesel-powered old-school pickup truck. So every single segment of the market, the Chinese are coming after to disrupt. And they're willing to make a loss, as you can see, indefinitely, as long as they can survive. How long can they survive? Well, that probably depends partly on the Chinese government. I'd say maybe indefinitely, therefore. In a keynote speech, Song said that electric vehicles were subverting fuel vehicles. Many producers have to produce both fuel and new energy vehicles, but the vast majority of large car factories have not made money from EVs. But if you don't make electric cars, you won't have a future, he said. That's the innovator's dilemma. That's a direct quote from Song. Li Auto, along with BYD, were the two companies that Song singled out as being profitable in the new energy vehicle industry. In 2023, Li Auto's total revenue was $17 billion, a year-on-year increase of 173.5%. On this, Li Auto made a net profit of $1.6 billion. It's a pretty good profit margin of 9.5%. However, companies like NIO, well, revenue at NIO was up 12.9% in 2023 to $7.6 billion. Car News China says that losses were up even more at 45%. So NIO lost $2.9 billion last year. And that was the reason why there was all these reports saying NIO is in dire straits. They are basically looking for anyone to invest. They're just constantly looking for these investors, offering them better deals and things like that. Anyhow, moving on. The average loss at NIO per car was $13,750. This is from a Chinese automaker who has been around since 2014. In 2023, Xpeng's car sales increased, but so did its losses as well. Revenue, 30.7 billion yen, $4.2 billion. Net losses, $1.4 billion. So, 4.2 billion revenue, $1.4 billion in losses. It's a pretty big loss. And it's even bigger when you've never made a profit before. When you're making losses year after year after year, it all grows. It all basically accumulates. What a lot of Chinese car producers are doing, says Car News China, is trying to gain market share rather than making profits on their cars. For producers who also make internal combustion engine cars, the losses from new energy vehicles can be subsidized through the sales of ICE cars. For the new startups who only produce EVs, the situation is more difficult as they do not have such a profit source. But on the other hand, they're also in a better position where they don't have to spend potentially billions and billions of dollars in building new factories, new production lines, in working out how to mass produce EVs at a profit. Now, these car makers, even though they're not making a profit, they are being forced to innovate and work out how to reduce their costs. And that's not really the same situation. Say if you're Volkswagen, you're General Motors, you're still making billions of dollars in profits. Is the pressure on you to innovate to stay alive anywhere near as intense? It's absolutely not. These companies in China, there is tremendous pressure on them to innovate in order to cut their losses. So that's another issue. How do legacy automakers contend with that kind of desperation? I mean, we're looking at employees here willing to work 12, 13, 14-hour days and work hard and work on much lower salaries than those on those Western car companies. And quite often, guys, I mean, let's be realistic, the average IQ level in China is actually higher than in the West now. We're contending with I think the challenge here is being underestimated by the West. There is anecdotal evidence, says Car News China, that this race for the bottom is also being extended to suppliers who are being forced to sell to producers at below cost prices in order for them to gain volume as well. According to global data, there were 150 automobile brands in the Chinese market in 2023, of which 97 were Chinese and 43 were joint ventures. So part owned by Chinese companies and part owned by European or Western companies. Factory capacity utilization rate in 2023 was only 59%. That is actually quite bad, but there were vast disparities between producers. For BYD, factory utilization rate was 80%, much better than legacy automakers. For Tesla, though, it was 92%. Now, Car News China says that a lot of foreign OEMs are doing very badly. Hyundai's utilization rate is 23%. It just sold its newest factory that cost it billions of dollars for peanuts. Much of China's output is controlled by 15% of factories, which have a capacity utilization rate of more than 95%, and their total output accounts for 47% of China's total in 2023. In other words, the Chinese car brands, their factory utilization rate is much, much higher than the factory utilization rate of legacy auto. What does that tell you about the profits now of legacy auto in China? They are basically collapsing. On the other hand, 20% of factories produced less than 1,000 cars in 2023. So there is all these factories producing cars, less than 1,000 cars in their factories. That is incredibly inefficient. Another 17% produced less than 10,000. Imagine the efficiency difference between, say, Tesla putting out nearly 1 million cars per year from one single factory versus these hundreds of factories, right, building cars with less than 20% utilization. 1,000 cars or less. Crazy. The China Bridge Summit is an important summit where the entire automotive industry pays attention to this information. Obviously, this is the kind of information the European Union and maybe the United States, other countries who may try to tax Chinese EVs, this is the kind of information that they'll take and say, well, the industry is being unfairly subsidized. These Chinese businesses are undercutting us unfairly and they're willing to make a loss and this isn't reasonable business practices. But the truth is, every industry in the world has acted this way. Amazon does exactly the same thing and it has for years. That's how Amazon became what Amazon is today. There's numerous stories of Amazon getting into businesses and basically undercutting everyone in that particular segment until everyone else dies, then buying those old businesses for peanuts on the dollar in order to basically take over a particular market segment. The West, they invented this strategy. China now is basically just implementing it in a way that we are not comfortable with doing anymore. We're not comfortable with acting this way anymore. Generally, now Western companies are like, no, we want to make profits. We're not willing to do that. The Chinese are saying, well, we are. And we're coming for you.